Hi, I'm Lara, and I'm going to present my project on representing the voice of the European eel in politics. So, my project is kind of like a visual essay or discussion that tries to lay bare the differing realities around the European eel and its own voice in human politics in 3 different visual frames. The whole piece is around 15 minutes long, and I imagine it being projected onto a wall so that the different visual frames that are now 3 different movies can cut across another more smoothly than now on my laptop. So when you also now, for example, see a white screen, you won't see it like that when you project it onto a wall. If it's white, you just won't see it. But yeah, to the project. In total, the eel story narrated by a poetic voice accompanying an animation of a swimming eel, as you can see in the bottom, will be complemented and overshadowed with fragments about centuries of mystery around the creature, to the history of eel fishery, to more recent mass farming, human impacts on the eel through water management, as well as the growing awareness of the eel going extinct and scientific findings about its vulnerabilities and needs, etc. So there will be a bit of a historic linearity to the piece. So I'm going to introduce the different frames now a bit more. The first one is the one that is supposed to represent the eel as a being itself, so its own voice, and that's the one in the bottom. The eel is represented in a more abstract and aesthetic and poetic way, and it's telling the life story of its species and at the same time what it needs, its need for free movement, its resemblance with the element of water itself as a fluid and transformative being. I will give a short insight into the piece here from so that you can just see how the first frame works.
Already in the state of a larvae, my consciousness was the movement of the sea. From my moment of birth, I was destined to move with and transform, with the water surrounding me, like the minerals, like the plankton, like each drop of water, I was merged with a magical element.
Okay, now I'm gonna mute it and let it leave it running so you can see a bit more of it, but without the tone, so I can explain more. So the storytelling that you heard now is more, it's like kind of touching, aesthetic, poetic, and somehow dreamy. To, on the one hand, represent the mystery and wonder around the eel from the human scientific perspective, and to enable an emotional or empathic connecting of the viewer with the eel as a living being, especially a creature that for many is either somehow slimy and repelling or merely seen as food or something. So then there are 2 other visual frames that you can see on the top now, and they're blinking right now. And these 2 other frames respond to certain demands and realities of the eel expressed in the first frame. So without stating clear arguments, which could on the one hand be seen as limiting and patronizing, I thought, and at the same time would make it boring for the viewer, I try to let the visuals speak for themselves and let arguments arise from the modes of representation. So the way the different visual frames respond to another and cut across another. Yeah, so that there's room for arguments to evolve by themselves, which hopefully will also keep the viewer more interested and engaged. Yeah, so the piece starts with giving some space to first let the eel in the first frame appear, tell its story, and let the viewer engage with the animal itself. And then the other frames will stimulate some further interest in the big eel mystery and the eel question, its beauty of transformation, etc. And after that, the eel's narrative will be complemented with facts from the human world about the eel from a scientific perspective, as well as with facts about how the human world impacts the eel's life, such as environmental policy making, fishery, and constructions of dams and turbines, like in the data plan of the Dutch government. I will present you one part of the piece now as an impression for how the frames work together, and I'm gonna skip through the piece a little bit. So here you can see facts about fishery, fishing culture. I'm gonna go here and play it for a little
We
bit.
hit the wall, and we hit the walls, more and more of us. Monstrous turbines, noises so loud, vibrations so disturbing, and no food to feed on. No way home, no way to the waters of the land.
I'm gonna let it run again and
No.
mute it. So the eel in its story tells about its need to move and transform with the water and across habitats. And then the other visual frames show findings of the European eel going extinct because of anthropogenic interferences hindering the flow of the water, as well as the planning of further dam constructions and the increasing demand for even more human-induced water management and domination because of, for example, sea level rise and the problems it poses to human survival, for example. So there will be the voice of the eel and its needs colliding with the human world, interfering in its life. But also there will be dissonances arising inside the human sphere. So in the second and third frame, there will be dissonances as well. As for example, scientific voices and practical attempts at managing the ecological often don't work together and are not really connected. So I'm not putting clearly stated arguments and rather let different narratives collide. So to not limit the scope of arguments to arise, as well as so to not be ignorant to different stakeholders and needs, as with the threat posed by sea level rise to humans, and at the same time, the need of the eel to keep the threshold between water and land and the water flow in general open. So that's about it for my presentation. And yeah, I just skipped to the end because it will be a bit sad showing the mast tanks in the end and empty water, but there's a hopeful view into an eel release by the Dupin Foundation in the end. Thank you.